Hey guys, welcome. It's Montel here, and thanks for tuning in to another edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. My guest today has more than 30 years experience as a pharmaceutical executive. He's the co-founder of Greene Street Pharmaceuticals and works to capitalize on his extensive experience to develop innovative products to make a meaningful difference in the lives of patients and physicians. Also joining the conversation is my friend, partner, and co-founder of Freshly Baked Company. To both of you, Frank Jones and Phil Smith, thank you so much and welcome to Let's Be Blunt today.
Montel, I can't thank you enough for having us on this show and look forward to this blunt conversation.
Absolutely. And Phil, thank you so also, my friend.
Definitely. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you. Look, before we jump into the meat and bones of what we're going to talk about today, I just want to get your impression. Up until this week, all of the streaming services were literally just bouncing down on the head of anybody in the cannabis industry who, even if you use the term medical marijuana, you might get thrown off their site for a week. You get penalized. If you even discuss the fact that cannabis was, value in some ways, if you kept bringing it up, you use the term cannabis, boom, they bounce you off. But now Twitter has said that they are going to allow discussions about cannabis. They may not allow branding, but they will allow discussions, which is going to help us, I think, as an industry really do the part of this job that we really need to do that we have been doing very well, and that is the B2C component. We'll be able to use Twitter to basically educate the consumer and let them know, what's out there, what's new, and innovations like what Frank's going to talk about, I think is a great opportunity. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely, Montel. We are no strangers to the shadow ban on social media, right? I think everyone knows about that industry, the old shadow ban, where you're posting things and no one's actually seeing them. And up until this announcement, which is a great step in the right direction, like you said, really LinkedIn was really the only one that you can kind of walk that line with. Everyone else, if you post anything, even remotely close to cannabis, especially without a disclaimer on there, you're usually banned on there. So I think it's a great first step.
I do too, and I think it's going to lead the way to make and really force the other streamers to kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely, because there's definitely a hole there. I mean, it's hard enough to market in this industry from state to state, depending on your regulations. But then when they're making it even harder online, and it's funny because there's a lot of things that they do allow on these streaming services that are like kind of a little shocking. So again, it's moving in the right direction. Hopefully, they'll lead the way and everyone will follow suit.
What do you think, Frank? Because this is really gives an opportunity for people like yourself, innovators, to actually talk about breakthroughs and groundbreaking, initiatives when it comes to things like delivery systems and other. What do you think?
You know what I like? It's a platform for education. Prior to doing something like that, it would be Phil going out one-on-one or talking to a group of people. But to reach the masses and get a good story without having to hide anything or being careful in the selection of words, I think it's a brilliant first step. And hopefully other companies like Twitter could do the same thing.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think it's a really unbelievable first step, and you're right. I mean, when you say I and Phil have spent what my brother 20, 30 days together visiting, doing pop-ups and dispensaries all over Massachusetts. I think we probably hit about 40 of them now, and visiting them and doing that one-to-one. But this does give us an opportunity now to discuss, talk about what we have, talk about the products that we have, talk about the way we think that what we're doing and others are doing is innovative, and educate the masses and give them an opportunity to go have a place to go that they can get that education.
Right, especially with what we're going to talk about today, Montel. Like you said, education is so important. Just educating people on these alternative delivery methods that are unbelievable and groundbreaking.
Absolutely. Let's just jump right in there, because I think I'm going to start with you, Frank. Tell me a little bit about your background first before you started Greene Street Pharma.
Sure. Thanks, Montel. I've been in pharmaceuticals 30 plus years. I don't want to give you the exact number, but
Well, you started when you were 3.
Oh, thank you very much.
There you go.
So I got first exposed to transdermal products maybe 15 years ago, where I was president for a division of a company that was based in Europe. And they had transdermal drugs, which were prescription-based products. And my task was to license the products out. And mind you, at that time, I knew nothing about transdermal drug delivery.
And so wait, let's go ahead and define what transdermal means so that our audience can understand you.
Okay, so if you take a look at the various ways that a drug or a product can enter the body, you have about five different routes. You have oral, you have smoking, you have injectables, and then you have transdermals. And transdermals basically is drug or product going through the skin that enters right into the bloodstream.
And when it does that, what's the advantages of that? Is that not a way to bypass the liver, bypass the stomach, bypass the intestines?
Uh, Boy, Montel, let's get deep into this. So,
Let's get
if
deep.
yeah, so if you look at a transdermal patch, and I'm going to explore the benefits and then balance that off with other forms of drug delivery.
Sure thing.
Transdermal patch goes on your skin, and I have an example of what one looks like. It's about this size, and it looks very simple, but it's complex technology. But I'll put that to the side for now. So when the drug enters into the skin, it bypasses the stomach, your intestine, and it gets right into the bloodstream. And what is the benefit of that is that when you take a drug orally, what's very interesting, it has to go through your stomach first. And that's where you get a lot of potential side effects with diarrhea, uh, GI upset, before it actually gets into the bloodstream.
And do
Or
you not lose some of the drug's efficaciousness by going through the stomach? Because you're basically digesting and breaking down those molecules, and not all of them are being used appropriately for what you intend the drug to be used for, right?
I think you're reading my mind, Montel.
Mm.
Correct. So there's this thing called first pass metabolism, which means you take a product orally. And in the case of CBD, it's very interesting. If you take 10 megs or 20 megs of product, only 6% gets into your bloodstream. Only 6%.
Wow. And so for all those out there who are hunting down, CBD oral products that are edibles, um, I think they think that they're getting, incredible benefit, but they really are basically stifling their benefit because of the way they're consuming it, right?
Uh, yes and no. I mean, orals do have a place because orals, they can deliver fairly quickly. So once you ingest it, it is starting to be destroyed at the same time trying to get absorbed into your bloodstream. So if you take a look at an oral, we get 6% of the available product in the oral pill going to the bloodstream. The transdermal, while it cannot get you an immediate effect, like in 5-10 minutes, it does bypass the GI system, gets in your bloodstream, and then provides steady state for up to 24 hours of drug delivery.
That's incredible. Well, tell us a little bit about Green Street Pharma.
So, Greene Street Pharma, and this is interesting, we had no interest in the cannabis industry when we first started the business. The business was really based on prescription products and really difficult to treat products like type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, irritability due to autism. And these things could benefit from a patch that instead of taking 2 or 4 pills a day, you put a patch on and it lasts 7 days. So, our interest when we first started the company was really prescription products that could benefit the general population that have chronic diseases and even people that can't swallow pills or it's very difficult to swallow pills. You put a patch on and you get your drug delivery.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I guess this is I'll take it on a little journey. A couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, I was at believe it or not, I'll tell you exactly where I was. I was at a casino in Tunica, Mississippi, and I happen to be I like casinos for poker player. I'm a poker player, so I bounce
Okay.
around the country. I bounce around the country and I play poker. And I happen to my wife while I'm playing poker, sometimes she stays in the high limit slot room, and I went by to visit her and she said, "This guy over here is just dumping money into these slot machines." And I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "This guy right there." I mean, I've been sitting here and he's probably put $20,000 in these slot machines. I said, "What?" And I turned around and I looked at the guy and he looked at me. He's recognized what it was. It's Montel. I started talking. I said, "What do you do for a living?" And guess what? This guy is in a transdermal business also, but he created the transdermal Viagra patch.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. Where you say, "Oh my gosh," yeah, it's probably one of the top selling pharmaceuticals in the world. So just to give you, an idea, this dude's dropping like 20 grand an hour in slot machines, but that's how much money he was making off of it. So, I mean, but now you haven't had an opportunity to educate the masses as much as you need to on this. I know, Phil, you've been carrying this product. First off, how did the two of you meet?
That's a funny.
Bill, please. It's a great story.
That's a funny story. I'll give you a shorter version of it. And my co-founder Jenny Roseman, her brother-in-law had bought a vehicle online by someone that didn't turn out so great. So he was telling me the story, and he mentioned the person's name. He said they were in cannabis, so I looked them up. And then on that person's website, there was a list of companies that he was supposedly working with. One of them was Greene Street. So we had worked with another company before on transdermals, and we got to understand how important the research behind it was. And once I found Greene Street, I reached out to Frank. I told him what we were looking to do, and if he was interested, and he said yes. And that's really kind of how we got hooked up.
Wow. And then, when we're talking about that, because you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if we can somehow use cannabis in a patch. And just intuitively, it doesn't seem like it would work. So, what do you have to do? You have to go through extra steps. Do you have to nanoparticleize the cannabis? Does it work for both minor cannabinoids and for, let's say, THC? And when I say that, by putting on a patch, does that patch provide you with the euphoria? Explain that to me.
Wow, great question. So before I met this brilliant marketer called Phil and his great
Mhm.
company, we were approached by a lot of companies that say, "Hey, Frank, can you put cannabis in a patch?" And it's like, okay, I could do this, but we're science driven, we're pharmaceutical based, high quality standards. And we said, yeah, we could do it. What are you going to use it for? Well, we don't know. We just put CBD in it and it'll sell. Don't like to deal with companies like that. We like to deal with companies like, let's get the education, let's put some really good science behind it.
Yeah, because I mean, the first thing you'd have to do is dig in to find out how would it be received, where are the receptors. I guess the CB2 connectors or receptors are more prevalent in the skin, right, than CB1. But then again, you'd be able to drive through the CB2 connector, the CB2 receptors, the THC that therefore would then travel in the bloodstream into the brain and get picked up by the CB1, right?
Correct. Correct. So, being a novice in the cannabis industry, once we got all these inquiries, but very good with transdermal drug delivery, I said, let me take a look at cannabis and explore the science behind it. And what we found out was a lot of people claim that you can get cannabis into, drug delivery through the skin, but it's hydrophobic. And hydrophobic means it does not like water, which means it really does not like going through the skin at all. You really need to find some way with enhancers or a variety of different chemical techniques to get it through the skin. And how we do that is we actually use human cadaver skin in special apparatus where we put skin, we put our patch over the skin, and there's a receptor solution, and then we can measure how much drug comes through the skin. And Montel, what I found, and you guys have heard this many times before, this is the wild, wild west, where we looked at competitive products just to get an idea what's it doing, and we found there is no drug delivery. There is maybe not the label claim. If you say 20 megs, maybe there's only 8. And we said, boy, this could really benefit from a disciplined scientific approach to assure that we get drug delivery of the cannabis. And we have tested the CBD, CBN, CBGs, the THCVs, the THC in our proprietary formulation to assure, yes, we do get drug delivery.
And no, does it work the same for the acid versions, CBDA, THCA, all those other ones, or is it hard to? I mean, we're looking at a plant and a source of material that literally has who knows, it could be close to 250 different cannabinoids. And so, do you have to go back and test to see the viability of the transdermal uptake based on each one of the cannabinoids, or is it a general where they all do kind of go through and permeate the skin?
Well, I'm going to give you two answers to that, and that's a great question. if you take a big step back and look at the molecule, everything that could be in the plant, they're kind of all the same, based on molecular weight and a whole bunch of other attributes. But to really determine and provide a quality product to a company like Phil, um, we test each individual component. So you mentioned other components. We don't know. We probably could make the claim that, yeah, it probably will. But until we put it in our skin permeation apparatus and do some HPLC chromatography on it, we really don't know. So we've established right now that I think 7 or 8 of them using our formulation can get through the skin.
And I mean, all over the country. And I should back up before Phil introduced me to the product. In California and Colorado, there are lots of companies that are making claims that their patches work. I never found much efficaciousness in a lot of the patches that I tried before. Um, and is that because they are not approaching it the same way? They're not using or not testing, or they're just, taking a shot in the dark to see if it works? What's going on with some of these other products?
Boy, did you hit the nail on the head. Personal opinion based on testing other people's products and looking at how they manufacture the products. So let me address manufacturing of the products first. A lot of these are, and I don't want to be derogatory, but it's
Sure.
probably done in a garage.
Yeah, no aspersions. Go ahead. Absolutely.
Probably done in a garage, mom and pop operation, with probably no experience in a disciplined pharmaceutical world or disciplined world of science. So we use pharmaceutical grade adhesives, pharmaceutical grade backing films, release liners, USP grade enhancer products that go into the patch. We manufacture it under a very controlled system. We test every product. And I don't think many people have that ability to say, let's do a skin permeation. I think if you ask that question of our competitors, they would say, well, what is that? Well,
Yeah. Or
in
they
our
straight up
world,
lie and say, "Oh yeah, we did so." Right.
yeah, yeah. In our world, that's the gold standard to say, yeah, drug is actually getting through, and we can tell you how much, how long, and does it generate impurities? That's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. You can put CBD in a patch. Does it stay as CBD, or does it break down to generate impurities that are harmful to you? So we quantify all that before we even say, Phil, we have a product that we'd like to launch with you.
And Montel, I just want to
Yes, sir.
follow up on your earlier question too. When you talked about the psychoactive effects, we have two, milligrams right now that we're offering. We do a 5 milligram with 30 milligrams of CBD. So 5 milligrams THC, 30 milligrams CBD. That is a very kind of relaxing experience. Does it get? There's a psychoactive effects very mild, but with Frank's technology, we've made a 20 milligram patch that has extremely good psychoactive effects, and then we're calling that more of like for your party patch or your stoner, to be honest with you. And the folks that are more heavy consumers, they seem to find that is very comparable. And I'm not going to say to smoking or edibles because the experience is totally different here than smoking and edibles, but comparable to the level where they feel like they're medicated enough.
But if you can you just give me a little bit more with that, Phil? I mean, when you say it's not the same, but it's comparable, do you think you experience, or like I saw you hold your wrist up, you have one on, is that a 20? And does that give you a euphoria?
So this right here is actually one of our 5 milligrams. I'm calling this like
Okay.
our first gen because we actually have a clear patch now.
Okay.
Clear patch that we're using here. And this is actually a 20 milligram here. I have a 5 milligram on right now. So for a 20 milligram, 100%. The way these patches work is that, like Frank said, it's for us, we found about 30 minutes in. That's probably the average of when you would start feeling the effects from these patches. But myself and a lot of people included, and we were just at NECAN with these, it was about 5 minutes. But on average, we'd say about 30. Like edible, you take an edible, you're in for 6 to 8 hours. Edibles affect people different ways. Some people get extremely medicated by edibles, and some people not so much. With the patch, it's a very consistent experience and dose every time you take it. So what we call it is kind of this clean feel, this clean energy feel, this clean, indica feel, if you would. So after the
But
patch,
there's a slight euphoria.
oh, in the 20 milligram, there's more than a slight euphoria.
Is
There's
it? Does it hit you? Does it hit you the same way, let's
hit
say,
you.
that an
So
edible does?
the way it hits you is that the patch will take you to a level, and then you will level off. You won't feel like you keep going, and then like an edible, sometimes you come down. You come to this very comfortable level, and you just cruise there for about 12 hours, and that's what this patch is for. A little bit before the 12 hours, you'll start to feel a slight come down, but it's not like a crash. It's very mild, slow come down off that 12-hour dose. And even though the THC might not still be there in that maybe 9, 10th, 11th hour, it's very mild. The CBD is still there. And with CBD and THC, you do have that entourage effect. So it's not like smoking where it's in the head. It's a very much balanced kind of high, if you would, but not something that like you go up and you go down. And then also with the patch, we found that with this technology, you take the patch off, and within an hour you're coming down and you're pretty much good to go because it goes straight into the blood. You don't have those lingering effects like you would with an edible or with smoking. It's very predictable on what's going to happen every time you put that patch on.
And any anxiety driven behind it? Does it seem to give? Does it give you that burst of anxiety? All of a sudden, it hits you. It's like, whoa, where did that come
No,
from?
no, and that's why we're calling it a clean feel. I had a call yesterday with one of our good partners that does our transportation here, and the CEO was telling me that I gave him one at Nikan. He's not a big consumer, and he tried one of these, and he was like, "Phil, this is unbelievable. I've never had anything like this." And that was the 5 milligram because he's not a big consumer. He was like, it was just this very clean kind of chill feeling I had. And then when I took it off, like I felt like I was, back to normal relatively fast, but it wasn't like this super high and this super low. He's like, I was at this comfortable state the whole time. And that's really what this product does. It gives you just a comfortable feeling, the whole time. No highs and no lows. It's really comfortable.
And I would imagine that there's got to be some incredible benefits, different benefits, if you were to start looking at some of the other minor cannabinoids. Are you making patches that have all the minors in there, like from CBG to CBN, CBC, CBDA? And we know that CBDA is not very stable. Is there a way to stabilize that and put that in a patch?
But right now, we're working with Phil on a CBN, which we've already formulated and it works, a CBG patch, which is nice. And Phil, this is kind of new for you. We got the THCV, and does that work? Chrissy, our head of development, she tried that, and I said, Chrissy, what made you so focused and so energetic in the last 5 minutes? Montel, because you'll find this funny. When we develop a patch, I'm not a user, so don't take anything against me, but
No.
I did try the patches, and when I put them on, I can tell you what Phil is saying is correct. I did a 5 meg THC patch, and I had to go to the hardware store to get something. I get to the hardware store. I walked into the store and I said, "Boy, I wonder what I'm here for." And and then it dawned on me, okay, here's what I'm here for. But it was a very comfortable, not out of space, but I just felt really good. And then I said, I'm wearing two of the patches, so let me take those off.
And I can
Wow.
speak actually to one of those, Montel. The last time I was down visiting with Frank, they had some R&D going on. I'm glad that it's progressed further, Frank. And this was with a THCV, which I have no experience with. I've just been learning about THCV. They're calling it the new weight loss drug, the energy drug, what have you. So it was a 5 milligram patch with 30 milligrams of CBD. Chrissy gave it to me. We went out to dinner. It was 11:30 at night, and I looked at Jenny. We're at the hotel, and I was like, man, and I get anxiety. And you asked about this earlier. Like I can't get what sativa is. I get bad anxiety. I have stress and anxiety, so I just can't mess with that. It's more indica. So I had this on. It's 11:30 at night, and I'll tell you what. I was literally tap dancing and dancing in that room. I couldn't stop moving. And I told her, I was like, this doesn't feel like caffeine. I don't feel jittery. I said it just feels super clean. This energy. And I was like, but how am I going to get to sleep? I take that thing off, and within an hour, I was sleeping like a baby.
Wow. And so you plan on expanding this line out to try to cover as many minor cannabinoids as you can, and then will it be minor cannabinoids by themselves with THC or minor cannabinoids just alone?
Well, I think it's a joint discussion that Phil and I are having. Right now, there's two types of business. So there is the minor cannabinoids as individual products with nothing else, and then the minors with the THC. So we can provide a broad range to potential customers.
And I guess you could also be looking at minor cannabinoids with other minor cannabinoids because you'd probably want to put some CBC together with some CBD and some CBG, and those could probably have special effects for various ailments that people might have. Um, and right now, are you only in Massachusetts? Where are you at?
Yep. So right now, just in Massachusetts, Montel, with the THC side under our freshly baked wellness patches here. But like Frank spoke about, we also have an MDAR license. So we produce CBD only right now as well, and those you can find nationally. We're getting to a few other stores outside of Massachusetts, but mostly in Massachusetts right now.
Okay. That's really unbelievable. That's good. And Phil, for you, I mean, freshly baked has really, I literally enjoy every single time. I'll be coming up to Mass here in a couple weeks, but I enjoy every time I come up there because, I visit a lot of dispensaries, and as soon as I say, my product is, I have a contract manufacturer who is freshly baked, and people like their eyes light up and go, oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, we try to be good operators here. We're not perfect by any means, so I don't want to like toot our own horn, but we do our best. And I think that was the key to the relationship with Greene Street here, is that we were very much aligned, like Frank talked about earlier, not only like in the personal relationship we have, and the views that we have there, but the education behind the products. And I made it clear to Frank when we first met that I wasn't interested in snake oil. And there's a
Right.
lot of snake oil out there, and I'm not interested. That's why, Montel, we get along because you're very much into the science and the effects of these products. So it was important to us to have a good partner like Frank to make sure that we're representing ourselves well, not only in Massachusetts, but, in other parts of the country as we expand here.
Sure. And Frank, I can't imagine, innovator like you sitting on your laurels. So are you working on any other types of delivery systems or any other things that we need to know about? And one thing you didn't mention when you were going through delivery systems is didn't mention sinus cavity. And I've often thought that that's an area that this industry hasn't explored as much as it should to begin with. And I'm not talking about, a I am talking about kind of like a nasal spray, nanoparticle spray that actually gets absorbed up in the mucosal area, up in the high part of your sinuses, and that would also help to bypass the liver and the stomach, would it not?
And you would get immediate relief from that. However, of all the doses besides injectable, that's the second most difficult to make. And it's not from a formulation, because once you get the product into the nasal cavity, you have a lot of fat, lipids, you've got a lot of water. The drug will go through and get into your bloodstream. The issue is that the product needs to be made under very good sterile conditions. You do not want to have any bacteria or viruses getting into your nasal. So if you have an oral, uh, there is a little concern for microbial contamination, but with your stomach acid, it really mitigates all that. The transdermal patch, the same thing. The bacteria and the viruses will not go through the skin. However, you're dealing with some very sensitive membranes, and it has to be made under sterile conditions. So, from a manufacturing point of view, that would be very capital intensive for us.
Got it, got it. But now, are you working on any other types of delivery systems that we don't know about?
Well, the classic orals, where, and I was sharing this with Phil actually the other day. As you know, Montel, most of the really good cannabinoid, minor cannabinoids, they're oils or they're extracts or tars, right? So if you want to make a good pill out of those or something from an oral point of view, it's almost impossible. You
Right.
can't put an oil into a pill. But what we found was a product that converts without any mechanical conversion. We found a product, then when we mix it together with it, converts the oil into a solid. So then we can directly compress a tablet with an oil.
Oh,
And,
wow.
and I and I think that's just fascinating technology right now. And that's something that Phil and I are continuing to work on.
Yeah, Montel, one of the top, edibles in the state is a pill. And I think people are surprised by that. But similar to the patch technology, this is pharmaceutical grade studied research in these products that are coming into the THC space, which we haven't really had. And that's what's special about these, that they've already been proven in the biggest market when it comes to these things is pharmaceuticals. Now they're coming into our space. So the science is there. And that's what Frank and Freshly Baked are, that's what we're bringing to the industry.
I'm saying now, do you have plans? I know, Phil, you've had some plans for a while of reaching into other states to see if you can get your brand licensed there and be able to provide product there. How's that going?
It's going good, and like Frank said, we're in discussions right now to bring our partnership a little bit closer here. And because this technology is so, there isn't any intellectual property like this really. It's very few of it probably in the pharmaceutical side, but especially on the THC side. So we're really looking into possibly licensing some of this technology to some larger operators. And honestly, even when we went to NECAN, I passed out patches, and I had a couple large operators that tried these that said we need this technology. So we're actually looking at maybe just doing licensing deals in other states where it's a white label deal. But Professionally Baked, we're still exploring, because that's still our forward-facing consumer brand, and it has a lot of brand equity and a lot of folks that want to work with that brand as well. But you might see this product and this technology in other states under other brands.
And that's interesting too, because now if you do end up having to go to other states, and that we've had some discussions about the fact that the brand is mine that you've been so gracious to help us disseminate in the state of Mass. We may be headed into Georgia. I'm definitely going to have conversations with our team there to see if we can also do this there. Will you have to manufacture in other states to be able to provide this product as the laws exist right now?
Yeah, sure. So it's very similar to the deals that we do here in Massachusetts with our white label deals, and we host folks. So the thought is similar to the way a lot of companies act here. I mean, a lot of brands aren't plant touching technically; they're just brands, and they work with manufacturers, and similar to Inspire, and they're co-man. So similar to that, we would set you up in your facility, license you the intellectual property, provide you all the tech support, and you can have these things going up in your own facility in relatively short time. The capex is relatively low to get these done, but the benefits are tremendous.
Absolutely. And now, just as a general question, how do you both, and I want both of you to answer this, how do you feel the industry is progressing? Dude, I say this only because I got asked this question the other day. You're saying, well, don't you think we've come a long way? And I'm like, are you kidding me? I started advocating for cannabis in 2001. So 21 years ago, I've been pushing this rope up a hill. And, you know what that's like when you push a rope up a hill. And as I look at the hill hasn't flattened out. I think we still got more hill in front of us. And part of that has to do with some of the unscrupulous practices of some of the people and nefarious practices of some of the people that are in the industry. But some of it is an industry to blame because, our industry is to blame because we don't do enough when it comes to educating the masses. There are people selling products out there that will probably turn some people off from your new innovative technique because they've tried those products and they don't work. And they don't work because technically these people didn't put the time and invest in the money and invest the hours in the research to make them work. So therefore, they've now, before you can even reach that market, they've already tainted the idea of patches. So, I mean, where do you think we're going? Let's put a crystal ball and think about the next year, then think about the next 2, then think about the next 3. What do you think? Either one of you.
Thank you, Phil. So, from a science point of view, when we entered this thing, I want to say 3-4 years ago, my view was after looking what was out there, this is the wild, wild west. Put aside the regulations. But if anybody had a pot to mix some stuff, stir it up, the product went out there, no education. And when we first looked at it, we said, well, what does CBD do? What does CBG do? What does THC do? And while there are some really good scientific and small clinical studies, it's not an overwhelming amount of material there to help educate, right? So my view was maybe 4 years ago, it was you just put a cannabinoid in something and it'll sell. What I'm thinking is going on right now, and thanks to you, Montel, and thanks to you, Phil, and guys that want to educate the masses, there is therapeutic goodness out of all be separate cannabinoids,
I
right?
mean, we know that in the last 2 years alone, there's been probably around 7,000 peer-reviewed, published documents out there on cannabinoids, minor cannabinoids, THC, and others, and their therapeutic effect, published all over the world. So I agree with you that the research has been hard to cull together, but I
Yes.
think as we move down this path, more and more entities are providing platforms so that you can have access to that information. And that's probably where, one of the most, I think that I'm excited about the fact that finally you can go up and find multiple repositories of, thousands of documents that it would take you weeks to read through to take a look at all of the things that have been going on all over the world when it comes to cannabinoids. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, and that's a great point. So a lot of that is starting to come through. So science-minded guys that want to take the time to read what does CBD do? What does CBG do? What is the indication? What is the dosing? What's the sweet spot? What's the overdose? All of that is starting to be developed right now, which I think is good. And not that I can predict what the future is going to be, although I can see, yes, it's going to be generally more accepted, but there needs to be, and it's starting to happen, a component of education. Why is this good for you, right? Versus a drug, right? I think it's starting, but that needs to happen as well as some really good standardized pharmaceutical grade type products that if I want 10 megs, I have 10 megs. And if I want 10 megs and it's going to deliver 12 hours, I have data to support that. I think those two driving forces it's going to take us in the right direction. Legislatively, I think we have a big hill to go up.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. And Montel, to your point, you've been talking about this for a long time. You've been one of the first trailblazers talking about this. And to Frank's point, it's probably really just starting to mainstream now because of folks like you have been pushing this for so long. So, the science community is definitely getting behind it, but it's that education of getting that research out that you speak about to the masses so they can actually know what's going on here. So when it comes to innovative products, that's why I think the orals and the patches are important to me because there is a whole section of potential consumers out there that don't really know or want to try the benefits of cannabis. I'll give you, someone who would be close to me would be like my mom, who maybe is, doesn't, who looks at cannabis as a gummy, that's candy, that she's not vaping, she's not smoking. But when you give her the idea of a pharmaceutical grade medical transdermal patch, like she's all about hearing about that. And we're finding that out when we're visiting dispensaries and we're talking to folks. A lot of times, folks get tired of hearing about the latest and greatest gummy. But when it comes to a transdermal patch, and you actually speak about the education behind it and how it can really benefit them, everyone has been all ears. So I think hopefully in the future here we get to these other forms of delivery that everyone can be comfortable with, not just your everyday user, because again, to Frank's point, the medical benefits that we all know about are there with cannabis, and it's not just getting high. A lot of people who do that don't realize all the medical benefits that they're actually getting. And I'm speaking to the choir, Montel, with you. But
Absolutely, and speaking of the choir with you also, I was at NECAN also, and I think it's finally starting to settle in with some of our other distributors and other people in the business that not everybody wants to get as high as they can. I mean, I think when we finally can convince this industry that this is not a end game where let's see how high we can make everybody. Let's put 75% THC and blast the top of your head off. Stop. There are a lot of people out here who don't have any interest whatsoever in walking around not understanding whether I got to tell you, I've got a wife who, I've been married now for 16 years. She has never consumed. And has had first off, her job wouldn't let her, but number two, she's had no interest because she's stuck in 20 years ago the idea that this has got to be a bad drug, and but at the same time, she's also seen the benefits that I get out of it, so she won't argue that. But I think she would be one that would feel way better in being able to take a pill. She'd be the one who would feel way better about being able to put on a patch, something that she knows is a pharmaceutical grade and been produced that way. And then she would be able to recognize the fact that if I put it on, I take it off, an hour later, the effect stops, so I'd be good to go with that. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of people, especially when you're looking at right now. I was you were at Nikan, I was at Nikan, and the one thing that disappointed me about Nikan is that, again, we in this industry keep putting on these major conferences where we are trying to educate masses on our technology and not necessarily on the benefits of cannabis. There's more conversations going on about extraction equipment, about testing equipment, about this, that, and the other. But I didn't see one big booth that just said, come here to learn why cannabis, why cannabis. I didn't hear one, lecture, why cannabis. I heard why my brand, but I didn't hear why cannabis. And, until we break through that with the masses, we've gotten there right now. We're looking at a population in America that is starting to now catch up with the rest of the world. In the last 10 years, world population has finally started to slow, even in places like China, Japan, India. Population is kind of slowing down a little bit because there's a generation that's really not having babies as quickly as previous generations. So therefore, we are starting to age as a population on the planet. Baby boomers right now in America, make up the generation with the most disposable income. Yet we're in an industry that's still trying to market to the 18-year-old. And, not all 50-year-olds want to come home from work and lose their brain. They want to come home from work, feel good. They want to relax. They want to feel better. They want to ease some of the tension in their body, but they don't want to be, so euphoric that they can't carry on a conversation with the rest of their family. And until we as an industry start to recognize that that's what's going on, and not even recognize the fact that the only reason why this industry has even gone as far as it has is because of the baby boomers that have ascended to positions in legislatures. Why are the bills passing? They're passing because finally that baby boomer that remembers being under the bleachers when he was in high school, smoking a joint and realizing I've been successful and now I'm a congressman. They're the ones who are saying, "Oh, this is okay. It's not as bad. This isn't my brain on eggs or drugs with a frying pan. This is a real thing that worked. It worked for me, and I didn't go out and shoot anybody or kill anybody." So when we start figuring out how to market to that demographic, I think we then hit a home run.
I could not agree more. And one of the things, not to advertise, but we're looking at CBN as something to help with sleep, It-
Oh,
with, with an indication, right? Instead of just saying, I want to get high, I want to do this, look for the
my
right indication.
My God, I think if you ask the question, I think the last time I saw poll numbers, it's like 64% of the entire country discusses the fact that they have sleep problems. And we know that there's a solution to that sleep problem when it comes to CBN. That's the reason why, Phil and their team helped us and we produced, a product that we call Snooze because, we're putting CBC, CBN, CBD, THC together in the same vape cart.
Yep.
And then that allows for a person to titrate themselves to a level that they have enough CBN, CBC in their body, reducing some of that inflammation, reducing some of that anxiety, and allowing you to have a relaxful evening of sleep without thinking you're going to have crazy dreams because you're not. And I can tell you something, Phil. I remember you really enjoyed our calm, and I don't know if you've hit that snooze lately in the day. But you might want to try that because I got to tell you, I literally in the last couple weeks, that's the cart that I have hooked to my pen. Because in the daytime, I mean, if you want to hit that hard and take a couple real good serious pulls on it and titrate, there's this really very, me, I'm a high THC guy. And I like THC with a little CBD on the top of it to take that anxiety off. But what I've noticed is that when I mix that together with the snooze, so I use the energy and the snooze together, boy, oh boy, that is a just a fabulous feeling throughout the entire day. I just want to get things done, move along. But if I stop for a second and I see something funny, I get a little laugh, get right back to work. You know what I mean? So I got my euphoria there if I want it. but I also have the calmness, relaxation, the body feeling that I want. So again, I think we've been discussing the fact that mixing those monocannabinoids together with the THC gives you more of that entourage effect that really nature wanted to give us to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. And I can speak to, the patch again too without THC. So for me, even the patch with just CBD, our everyday patch, and we're getting a lot of feedback from folks now. Even without the THC, it's an amazing product for stress and anxiety. Amazing product. It doesn't take it to zero, but it takes it from 100 to like 25%. Like it really knocks it down. So yeah, the minor cannabinoids, as we get more education on this, people are really going to find out that even without the THC, because a lot of folks are still, wary about the psychoactive effects, and I get that. That's why we make this low milligram, patch for someone. It's, you can just cruise kind of all day and you're okay. It just knocks out that stress and anxiety. But if you want to get a high dose, that 20 milligram will get you up there.
Well, when I see you next time, you know what you can bring for me. All right, for sure. All right, my brother. Well, look, real quick, I can't let you go without giving out some stats. So how can people find out more about Freshly Baked? And how can people find more about your company, Frank? So you start, Phil.
Yep. So of course, on any social media platform, freshlybakedcompany.com will come right up. Freshlybakedcompany.com, our website. Check us out online and definitely on social media. We try to post quite a bit, especially about our new partnership and these new patches. So please come check us out.
And Frank, if we want to know more about Greene Street Pharma,
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way, or directly to our website at greenstreetpharma.com.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being a part of the show today. I want to make sure you tune into the next Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.